and that will eventually wear off. But this is a good place to go to make sure you're not afflicted with a disease, because if you are, it will show here what disease you're actually afflicted with. Next, skills. Okay, so this is where the skill trees are at. This is the meat and bones of building your character. So each skill tree is tied to various things. So we have our different schools of magic. So here we have our destruction, which is, as I mentioned, it's going to be your frost, fire, and electric attacks. We have restoration magic. This is obviously being able to heal yourself, and actually even defend yourself to a point too. Alteration magic involves the manipulation of the physical world and its natural properties. This skill makes it easier to cast spells like water breathing, magical protection, and paralysis. So alteration spells are all about manipulating things. You can actually learn some spells that will make you more vulnerable, like as if you're wearing heavy armor. You can obviously paralyze enemies, make it so that you can breathe underwater. Basically, it's kind of like transmutation to a point. Then there's enchanting. Now, enchanting is just basically the ability to put enchantments on various pieces of armor and weapons. This is, aside from smithing, probably one of the most valuable skills you can learn in this game, because being able to put high-level enchantments on your weapons and armor can just completely change your game. It can really allow you there's a whole lot of really good enchantments you can get in this game that can drastically change how your character plays. And it's just kind of endless to a point too, because you're constantly going to have new weapons and armor to toy with that you're building, always giving you an opportunity to put enchantments on things. You have enchantments to improve your ability with smithing, improve your enchanting, make you better with bows, make you better with single-handed weapons, increase your magic resistance to certain elements, increase your regeneration for health, regeneration for stamina. I mean, it goes all over the place. Then you're smithing. Once again, unless you're playing like a straight up magic character, even then smithing is going to be useful, because even though you can't improve your robes, or I don't think you can anyways, I'll have to double check on that, but I don't think you can improve anything other than heavy armor and light armor and weapons. That said, typically even with a mage, you're still going to be wearing boots and gloves, which would likely be light armor, so you can benefit from having, beefy boots and gloves on your character, even if you can't wear regular armor. For that matter, you can even wear heavy armor, like heavy gauntlets and heavy boots with a mage. As long as you're not trying to play a stealth mage, that will give you that increased armor rating you need, and of course you would definitely benefit from smithing. So even if you're playing like a mage that's not wearing all the armor and weapons, smithing is still something you definitely want to invest in. So then, your armor trees are kind of interesting, because basically you get better at wearing that armor simply by getting attacked, and you're going to get attacked a lot, and there's certain situations where you can allow yourself to be attacked to make this even better. So I did want to mention that is one of the things about how you level up in this game, is you simply, whatever you want to level up, you do that. If you want to get better at smithing, you smith. If you want to get better at heavy armor, wear heavy armor and let yourself get attacked. If you want to get better at attacking with single-handed weapons, you use single-handed weapons. If you want to get better at archery, you simply use bow and arrow. You basically get better at things by using them or doing them. Now I was going to mention the infinities real quick. So as you can see, by default, the Argonian has an affinity for alteration and restoration magics. We also have an affinity for pickpocket, and a really high affinity for lockpicking, stealth, and light armor. And you'll see those are all 20 or higher. I used to think you only had like 2 skills that you had high affinity for, but apparently it's more. Whereas, once again, all of our other skills that we don't have an affinity for are basically in the 15 range is where they start. And where this is important is when you start working your way up through one of these trees. And let me go back. So we're looking at blocking. So this is basically if you're using shields. It's this skill tree. Two-handed weapons is if you're playing a character that's basically want to be straight up offense and you're using large two-handed weapons, that's for that skill tree. Single-handed weapons, whether you're using a sword and shield, axe and shield, or if you want to dual-wield weapons, this is the skill tree. Archery. Bows can be almost overly cheap in this game. It's very easy. There's a running gag about everybody ends up being a stealth archer in this game, no matter what you intend to play. And it's kind of true, because if you max out this tree, especially with stealth, you're pretty much an unstoppable force. Light armor. Light armor is kind of useful in that it is going to be what you want to do if you're playing a stealth character. And once again, you've got different skills here. Obviously, this one, you get a 25% when you're wearing all light armor. Light armor weighs nothing and doesn't slow you down when worn. Stamina regenerates faster when you're wearing light armor. Chance of avoiding damage from melee attacks while wearing light armor. So there's that. I mentioned there was a skill in heavy armor. Fist of Steel. Unarmed attacks with heavy armor gauntlets do their armor radiant extra damage. So yeah, you could definitely throw that on a Khajiit and get that extra armor damage. So going back this way, stealth obviously, harder to detect. Sneak attacks with one-handed weapons now do 6 times damage. This is especially useful if you're using the dagger sneak. Sneak attacks with bows do 3 times damage. Assassin's Blade, 15 times damage when you do a stealth attack with a dagger. So yeah, if you're really wanting to play the ninja, you gotta have that tree. Lockpicking. So once again, most of the skills in this tree usually are kind of just pointless. But it is useful to load this thing up and then max it out and then cash in those skill points to put into other things once you reach a high level. Pickpocket. So yes, you can steal from other characters in this game, NPCs, whatever. I've never dabbled too much in pickpocketing, but it is a thing. And in some cases, there are parts of the game where you actually have to do that. Speech is one of those that's also pretty underrated, because it just doesn't seem that useful, but some of the high-ranking skills in this tree are very useful, especially in the end game. But you will find yourself in situations where having high speech level is very useful. You can bribe guards to ignore crimes, persuade attempts are 30% easier, intimidation attempts are easier to pull off. Merchants can sell any type of item to any kind of merchant. So there's a point in the game where truthfully you're going to find yourself with a lot of stolen merchandise unless you're just really playing the pious character. And items that are deemed stolen, regular merchants will not buy them from you. So you have to get in league with the Thieves Guild in order to sell stuff that's basically stolen. If you get this skill, then basically they ignore the fact that it's stolen. Or is that true? Any type? Oh, no, I'm misunderstanding. That's the fencing ability. This is basically more along the lines of, typically you can't sell armor to a merchant that doesn't sell armor, or you can't sell spells to someone that sells armor. Like basically you have to sell the type of stuff that they're selling to them. They won't buy things through their stuff they don't typically sell. Investor. Okay, this is a good one here where you can invest 500 gold with a shopkeeper to increase their available gold permanently. So you can't simply just unload on merchants. They literally have a certain amount of money available at any given time, and they can only buy so much from you. This basically allows you to increase how much they have available money to spend to buy stuff from you. Fencing is the one I was thinking of on the other one. So yeah, once again, this basically lets you sell stolen goods to any merchant that you've invested in. And then this one basically gives everybody an additional 1,000 gold. So I think by default they usually have 2,000 available. So between these two, they'll usually have 3,500 available for trading in the future. Alchemy. Now this one is one that a lot of people argue about how useful it actually is, in part just because it's incredibly difficult to max this one out to a certain degree. To a point. Basically because there's just a lot more involved with this than there is, say, with smithing or enchanting, because basically with enchanting you find a new item with a new enchantment you've never seen before, you go take it to an altar, you learn that enchantment. Smithing, you simply got to have the materials and the level, but with this you actually have to collect all the different ingredients, and then you have to learn the ingredients, and then you have to go through the process of making the various potions through trial and error of combining the different ingredients together based on the different traits you know or may not know for that particular ingredient. So it's very labor intensive, but for those who've taken the time to really max this one out, you can actually end up creating some incredibly potent poisons and potions. It just requires a lot of patience and work to really make the most of this skill tree. Some people have patience for it, most do not. So getting into the different skill trees of magic, so here we have the illusion involves manipulating the mind of enemy. This skill makes it easier to cast spells like fear, calm, and invisibility. So these are more support spells, not really stuff that you can outright fight with, but these can be useful for just about any class you're playing. Whether you're wanting to use a fear spell to intimidate enemies, or calm spell to distract them, or invisibility for them to just completely ignore you. These can be really fun spells to use. It's almost kind of like in Borderlands with pissing off of the Goliath and getting them to attack other enemies, or leading skags into a bunch of bandits. It's just fun to watch chaos break out when you get people, hit with fear, or a guy's running at you and then he suddenly stops and then he's still like, oh, you shouldn't be here. Anyways, though, the problem is that you really have to spend the time to use these spells quite a bit and put points in here, because basically it's all about getting it to the right level. Because if you try to use low level illusion magic on a higher level enemy, it simply just will not work. Which means you really have to stay on top of these spells to make sure you're always getting skills in these trees so that you're maxed. So, perfect example. Right here, novice level, this basically just lowers the amount of mana it costs to cast that particular spell. And this is usually how it works on all of the spell trees. This one here, illusion spells now work on higher level animals. Illusion spells work on higher level humans. All spells you cast from any school of magic are silent to others, so there's a stealth one there for you if you're playing a stealth mage. Illusion spells work on undead and Daedra and Onatrons. So typically they would only work on, actual living creatures. This allows you to actually, this is the capstone too, but you can actually make these spells work on zombies and demons and robots. Rage. Frenzy spells work on higher level opponents. Cumulative with Kindred, Mage, and Ant. So these kind of are more spell specific. Aspect of Terror. Fear spells work on higher level opponents. Hypnotic Gaze. Calm spells now work on higher level. And then over here we have cast apprentice level spells. So these are more about basically making these higher level spells use less magic. You don't have to use as much mana to cast those spells. And this is kind of a similar pattern you'll see with most of the magic trees, is a combination of allowing you to cast higher level spells at a lower cost, and improving or affecting the various spells in that tree. So next we have Conjuration. Now, Conjuration is the school governs the raising of dead and summoning of creations from oblivion. This skill makes it easier to cast these spells as well as trap souls and bindings. So this is basically your summoner slash necromancer. These guys usually are about getting zombies or creatures from other planes to come out and fight on their behalf. They don't usually do any direct fighting, and they don't usually use any direct spells, although you can. And that's kind of the beauty of this game, is you can mix and match the various skills and magic to get whatever type of character you want. So with this, once again, this is all about spells that are so you have bound weapons. You can actually summon weapons, although they're really strange to me. I'm not really sure how you can improve upon them. I've never really focused much on that. See, greater duration of reanimated dead. So basically your thralls stay around longer before they basically die and can't be re-raised. So then there's destruction. As I mentioned, this is your tree all about doing damage with the elements. Then we have restoration. Now this tree is good for a couple of things, no matter what type of magic you're going for, because of this skill here. You get increased magic regeneration, and when you can get the second point on that, I think it increases by 50%. And then once a day in game time, heals 250 points automatically when you fall below 10% health. Alteration is kind of a weird tree. Involves manipulation of physical ward properties. Okay, we went over that one already. So that pretty much covers the skills for that. And our map here just shows us the dungeon. And we can see where we're at on the world as well. Alright, so I'm going to conclude this video here, and we will pick up next from this location.